I was supposed to go to the community welfare officer, which was up the hill as you go towards St. Joseph's. But it sorted itself out anyway after a while. The Cashel GoldStar started, and I was very interested in it. Wow. When I was in St. Pat's in the beginning, and Caris Welby, Lord rest her, she was my physiotherapist at the time, and she took me down the centre of Cashel. It will be good for you, she said, to see the obstacles and to see what we need to work towards. So off down I went into the centre of Cashel, and that's literally what the only thing we could do was go down the main street on the road, because there was nothing else accessible to me. I couldn't get up on a footpath, I couldn't get down if I did get up, if somebody put me up. And then the Cashel GoldStar started. And we decided that we would do the tour of Cashel, that if visitors or people living there even were coming into Cashel or living in Cashel, that we would go down and see how could we make a difference. So we started off with restaurants, with hotels, with the Rock of Cashel, and churches, and we went in and just pavements, and bit by bit by bit. So myself, I said, I'll go down Cashel there, I think it was about 2008, and I'll just see, 2009 maybe, I'll just see what I can do. So I parked my car there. There's a junction there as you come down from St. Pat's, and there's a junction in the middle of the road there. So I parked my car around there, and I got out. And down the road I went, and I was able to go to this side, and I was able to go to that side, and I was able to go into this shop, and I was able to go into that shop. Whoa, what a difference. A huge difference. We spoke in schools. Children were very interested. They wanted to know from the Cashel GoldStar all about disabilities and what they could do. And I actually brought in another chair with me the day we went into one particular school. And just to give the children a feel of what it's like, that you just don't sit in it and roll. You have to be taught. And they had great sport putting the teachers in it to see who would succeed and who would fail. The questions that the children asked, I mean, were very relevant. One asked me, well, how would you get on a plane? How would that happen if you had to go across the tarmac and the steps were up? So I said they'd get 4 fine fellas to lift me. Wouldn't I be delighted? And we went to Poland as well there in June. And the plane was accessible because now they have what they call the back of the lorries, let's say, that type of thing, and they put you into it and they bring you out and they can get you in a side door. So I was sitting on the plane anyway, when I noticed in front of me that for the first time in my life, the loo door had a disabled sign on it. And I thought, brilliant! This is real advancement. So I called the air stewardess and I said to her, oh, I said, I see the sign on it. Can I use it? And she said, yes. And then she came back to me and she said, no. And I thought, why, you know? And she said, well, we forgot to put the chair that would bring you from the seat to the loo. It's still in Dublin, and we were on our way to Krakow. So these things happen, they do happen. But you have to laugh at them. When we arrived then in Krakow, we sat, it was 32 degrees. We were delighted because they had rain and rain and rain and floods and everything. And we sat and we got refreshments, which were lovely. And I saw this man come over, and he looked at me and he looked at those around me, and he went away. He came back again a few minutes later, and he looked again at me and he looked around and he went away. And the third time he came over, he approached us, and in some kind of language we understood he was there for our transport. So we went off out, and he pointed this way and that way, and we, like a flock of sheep, so we followed him. And we came to the minibus, which had a grand trailer on the back. And I said to Anne, I turned and I said to Anne, you know, this is not accessible, you know, there's nothing there. I can't see anything that'll get me in. And she said, sure, it's probably around the other side of the, you know, we're just not seeing it. She said, it's probably around the other side. These were panicking then. The delegation was panicking at that stage because it didn't look accessible. So the driver, anyway, pointed to the trailer. They had brought a trailer, and this was great, and this was the accessible transport. No disrespect. And this was the accessible transport. They wanted to put the trailer, or the wheelchair, in the trailer. So they had brought... Oh, no, they didn't want me in the trailer. Oh, no, just the wheelchair. No, just the wheelchair. But then I couldn't get into the bus. So there was no... As luck had it, I usually bring, if I'm going somewhere I don't know, I usually bring my transfer board, which helps me to transfer on. So we used that for me to get into the floor of the bus, and then I got up onto a seat because I worked on the upper body strength, so I was able to do that. Thoroughly enjoyed Poland, thoroughly enjoyed Strzyżu. People very welcoming. They wanted to know from what they had made accessible there for all the delegates, was it acceptable to our standards? And I said, yes, you keep doing what you're doing because it was accessible. And it is a beautiful, beautiful city. Some people call it, others call it town, but it's beautiful. And I would go back there again, to be honest with you. This one? Got it, yeah. I decided that I'd learn how to drive again. And so I got the hand controls and off I went. That was grand. And my daughter was returning to Limerick College, which was quite late at night, I suppose. And it was about 12 midnight, I'd say, by the time I got back into town. And as I came into Clonmel, I came in by the Cherrymount, Woody's end of it there, Cherrymount, and you go up over a hill to go down into the town. On the brow of the hill, it was a murky, miserable night. Oh, it was dreadful. On the brow of the hill, there were the guards. They stopped me. That was fine. I pulled down the window, and he had a torch in his hand. And he sort of said, who was I, first of all? And I told him who I was, where I was coming from, the usual, where I was going to. And he shone the torch in, and he took about 3 steps back. And he scratched his head. After a few minutes, he came back and he shone the torch in again. And then I think he caught sight of the wheelchair in the back. Then it was making sense. He knew he was missing something. He just couldn't put his finger on it. I believe, to this day, I believe, he is the only guard to go back to the barracks that night and say, I stopped a lady tonight. She was completely legless, but I couldn't give her a ticket. Another incident that happened to me was I was in Limerick City. I was with my daughter. She pulled in the car. She had just had a new infant at the time, Lisa. And again, it was a wet day. I don't know what I'm doing with wet days, but it was a wet day. So she put the child in the buggy, got my wheelchair out, and she said, I'll go straight across over to that side of the road so the child won't get wet. And I said, fine, brilliant. And I said, I'll go up to the pedestrian crossing and I will cross there because all the dishes were there. Otherwise, she would have had to leave the child parked somewhere, come back, get me, and put me up the step. So I said, I'll go up to that pedestrian crossing. The next thing was, I looked just kind of back at her as I was wheeling along, and there was this shock on her face. That's the only way I could describe it. 5 youngsters, young lads, made a run for me. Anybody here? What did they want? What were they going to do with me? Handbag, okay. Wheelchair. What they did was they put up their hand and said, "Mrs., we'll help you across the road." And they lined up either side of the pedestrian crossing and they put up their hands and they said, "You stop," they said to the car. And the other fellow, "You stop," in the Limerick accent, which I can't do. And they saw me safely across the road. So I thought, these youngsters probably are very seldom in school. And here they are with the social model, helping people get to where they want to go.